look, it goes beyond even women's sports. I don't know if I've ever seen something like this. The impact and the discourse and the popularity and everything that comes along with Caitlin Clark. I mean, in social media, LeBron James is probably the closest I've covered as far as like there being something to talk about every day. But as far as just raising the league and everything, I go back to a Jay-Z line on Michael, Magic, and Bird all rolled in one. And to the aspect that you were mentioning, there is no question. There is no question that Asia Wilson is so much more famous now than she was before Caitlin Clark arrived in the WNBA. And that goes for basically every WNBA player that people can now rattle off that they couldn't before, or the banners that they could recognize at All-Star Weekend. And so I know Christine has actually been is generous enough. She's going to answer some comments. I see them coming in, guys. We'll get to those at the end. She's generous with her time and the fact that she's willing to respond to some comments. And you can purchase her book. The link is in the description below. But I want to get to a few more topics, including that backlash. Let me first get to the personal backlash that you've received, Christine. I'll focus that on two people that I've seen publicly. Dejanay Carrington has kind of questioned your character, whether she's doing it cryptically or not. And Cheryl Reeve says you want a villain in your story based on the Olympics coverage and everything like that. How do you respond to those two?
Yeah, well, I like Cheryl Reeve, and I think she's funny. And we finally met at the Minnesota game, the Indiana-Minnesota game. I think it was, what was that, August 25th, 26th. As I was now, of course, on the road covering the Fever. As soon as the Paris Olympics ended for this book, I just hit the road, had access to practices, some practices that was exclusive access, and asked Caitlin Clark 40 to 50 questions. She knew they were for the book, most of them in very small press availabilities or some press conferences, obviously. Again, nothing like an NFL press conference. So I could always got called on, always could ask anything on the record, totally, no holds barred, just what you'd hope for from Caitlin Clark. Just that kind of honesty, and she loves tough questions. And I know that she said in Time Magazine, something about the questions I asked. Well, the Caitlin Clark I know and that I've gotten to know a little bit, and obviously write this book. She's take anything, anytime. So again, another reason for people to look at her and just, as I say in the book, 22 going on 40 or 50. The maturity is extraordinary. I've covered thousands of athletes, and she's one of the most mature I've ever seen. And then at young age, absolutely. The most mature. There's no one even close in that sense. And so anyway, so I meet Cheryl Reeve and I asked her would she talk to me for the book? And she said, yes, let's do it after the season. And now that the Olympics are over, she kind of smiled and okay. And I did cover one game at the Olympics, and I did listen to her scrum. We were all in the mix zone there where we just gather around people. So I'd been around her a little bit, but here's the thing, and I wish it weren't so. I wish Cheryl Reeve didn't do this. I mean, I don't get to pick news, right? I don't get to pick what's the story. News happens. I mean, yeah, I'm not covering every story, right? I'm not writing columns on every topic, but now that I cover the Olympics. I've been covering the Olympics since 1984. It is not unusual for me to write then about the Olympics, and I was able to break the news from a source that Caitlin Clark was not being put on the Olympic team. And there had already been some buzz and some noise and cacophony of sounds on this topic even before. And that was Cheryl Reeve saying at the Olympic media summit that she had not been in the trenches with Caitlin Clark. Okay. Then I talked to two veterans of women's basketball. I happened to bump into both of them at a game within a couple hours of each other, independent of each other, right around the time that the decision was being made about the Olympics and whether Caitlin Clark would be on the team. I did not know she was not going to be on the team at this moment. And both those people, independent of the other, when I said, hey, what's up? What do you think? Which is what journalists do. We talk to people. We ask questions. Sometimes there's a story. Sometimes there's not. It's a people business, and I love it. And these are people I've known for a while. And I said, what do you think? Caitlin Clark, she's going to make the Olympic team or not? Oh, no, probably shaking their head, no. What do you mean? What, like, why? And they said, well, because her fan base wouldn't understand, and we don't want them to all get mad at if she only plays a few minutes in the game. And I literally laughed the first time I heard that, Robin. And then a couple hours later, I heard it again, completely independent from another person that I trust. These are totally plugged in people. And I realized, oh, this is serious. This is serious. the USA Basketball is going to make a decision. And one of these people was very involved in the decision-making process. The other knew all about it, but wasn't involved. I mean, I couldn't have run into two better people on this topic. I mean, I guess if Cheryl Reeve had wanted to talk to me and tell me everything, but she wasn't there, and I didn't talk to her about at that point. Anyway, USA Basketball is making a decision, or at least this is a part of the decision making on the fact that Caitlin Clark might not play many minutes, which would be true because she would come off the bench, of course. And although a three-point shooter is incredibly important in international basketball, anyone who watched the 1988 men's Olympic performance by the U.S., which led to the Dream Team in '92, knows that the U.S. John Thompson didn't have enough three-point shooters. And then we had that was the end of the collegians, and then they started the amateur or the pros, the Dream Team in '92 in Barcelona. So that was in '88 in Seoul. I covered that. These are things you know. And so anyway, you'd want to have her. And I'm thinking USA Basketball is making a decision. I mean, I've covered Olympic team selection decisions since '84. I've never heard or seen anything like this. So the goofiness, the ridiculousness was already apparent. Also, Cheryl Reeve in the preseason, so moving back a little bit, in May, I know people know this, but it takes a minute or two, but I do think it's important to set the scene and to go through the sweep of what happened. Cheryl Reeve was on Twitter, and I was alerted. A couple people, sent it to me. I wasn't paying attention to Cheryl Reeve's tweets necessarily, and that she's tweeting about Caitlin Clark and about the fact that her preseason game, Minnesota's and Chicago's, is not on TV, and of course that was the one that ended up being live streamed on Twitter, X, but that Caitlin Clark's is, and the hashtag the W is more than one player. It says 55-year-old, 50-something-year-old Cheryl Reeve tweeting at a 22-year-old. I mentor a lot of 22-year-olds. I've mentored hundreds of college students and young people, 18 to 22, younger, older. I mean, I do more mentoring than anything else. I would hate myself, Robin, if I targeted in any way, shape, or form a 22-year-old as someone who's much older. What on earth was Cheryl Reeve doing as a person? Second point, she is the Olympic coach, and she is now tweeting about, focusing on, whatever the right wording is. I think in my USA Today story I wrote about it, and then I put this in the book, of course. What is she doing focusing on someone who's still in the Olympic selection pool? I asked the USOPC. They did nothing. They never got back to me. Did nothing, obviously. How was that even acceptable to the leadership of USA Basketball? I ask that right now. I'll ask it. I wish, they didn't. No one wanted to talk. They didn't want to talk to me for the book. I think you don't know me, but I bent over backwards over and over again, 3, 4, 5 times to have people talk to me for the book. Give them every opportunity. It is a bestseller. People are reading this book. I wanted to give them, I didn't know it would be a bestseller to this extent so quickly, instantly, but I wanted to give them an opportunity to soften or to explain themselves. Cheryl Reeve, please talk to me. I texted her, I called her PR people, I got in touch with emailed the PR people, went through USA Basketball several times in May when that first story broke for USA Today, and then all the way through, including, I forget exactly when, but certainly December, maybe January, to give her an open opportunity to talk to me. I would have run the quotes at length. If she didn't want to do that, okay, that's fine. But when she said, I think at one point in that appearance she had, that, well, I didn't do the due diligence. Oh, I so did the due diligence. And she knows that because she had the messages, including text messages when I got her cell number. So the lying, Robin, it makes me sad to say this because I like Cheryl Reeve. I mean, the lies, are there and anyone can find them and see them. So anyway, she did that early on and focusing on a 22-year-old who looks up to her. I mean, that's just stunning. And that was okay with any type of people in leadership above her. So now, of course, she says she didn't give two blanks about Caitlin, one blank, and just, kept it up. Then I was asked on a radio show, well, before the book came out, North Carolina, Adam Gold wanted to ask me about Cheryl Reeve and the Olympic decision. And he basically was saying, hey, I disagreed with you, but now I see your point about the Olympic decision. Because the TV ratings were the lowest for the women's basketball since 2008, according to NBC. That's all in the book. It was a disaster. It was they never got the attention they deserved. I wish I'd been wrong. I was right because I've covered the Olympic basketball team since '84. The women's probably 5 gold medal games alone. No one's there in the press section, not because we don't care, but because there's so many other things going on in Olympics. 20, 30 events a day. Sports editors send their people to other things that they know the U.S. is going to win the gold. That shouldn't be the case, but that's what it is. Women's soccer is going to lose potentially. Women's basketball would never lose. You send a reporter to women's soccer. Anyhow, so I go to the game and what have you, one game, the semifinal game, and cover the team and see the lack of reporters. And again, a Brazilian journalist, Robin, came up to me early on in the Olympics in Paris. Where's Caitlin Clark? I would have covered every game, this woman said. She never came to cover the games. British journalist, tell me about Caitlin Clark. Why isn't she here? He never covered any U.S. women's basketball games. That's what I was talking about. I feel vindicated. I wish I was wrong, and I wish the team got the attention it deserved. Anyway, now just a month ago, the book's going to come out. Adam Gold wants to revisit it. I talk about it, and then of course Cheryl Reeve then is asked about it. The Golix, because they then asked me about it again. And, Cheryl says the book is fiction. I mean, Cheryl's smart. The book is definitely nonfiction. Like, what? And Cheryl has an open invitation to call me or talk to me anytime. I mean, this is just kind of ridiculous. But this ain't my first rodeo, so I'm happy to discuss this. And then she was saying that I was making up stuff about the tweets or whatever. And of course, not only was she focused on with it, W's more than one player and basically blaming Caitlin Clark. Someone had then put in, why is this happening? Then another person said, well, because of Caitlin Clark. And then Cheryl Reeve types it into her phone or whatever she does, into her Twitter account, that part. So she answers, the Olympic coach, the coach of the Minnesota Lynx, the revered Olympic coach, a couple months before the games, is now replying to an unknown person, that part, meaning it's Caitlin Clark's fault. And as I understand it, I don't know. Again, Cheryl has an open invitation to talk to me anytime. Of course, it's a two-way street with me always, as everyone knows who I've ever covered. They all have my cell phone or email, whatever. But she then apparently she then deleted the tweets.
She did.
So right. So I'll let everyone figure out. Yeah,